Well, I'm very involved in Falun Gong organizations now. At this point, I actually head up a nonprofit organization based here in New York. That's the press office for Falun Gong to the Western media. So at this point, I'm very involved. I deal a lot with all the stories that come out of China, getting those to media, getting those to human rights group. Very, very much a part of my life. I mean, my life is when I come home from work at night, you know, we have dinner with the kids, I kiss them goodnight, I tuck them in, and I go downstairs and this is what I work on. We have no funding. We do our work very much, I mean, I'm a perfect example. On nights and weekends, out of our own pocket, whatever the situation needs, we do it. If the Chinese Communist Party has just done something terrible or issued some press release spreading some lie, I get on the phone with half a dozen people that I know around North America and Europe that are doing the same thing like me and say, you know, we really need to issue a press release on this, or we need to get this story to a congressman. And we just have a conversation about how are we going to get this done. And that's the way almost all of our work is done. It's all done grassroots, it's all done volunteer work, out of our own pockets.
从学习东方文化到修炼法轮功，对布罗迪来说，好比兴趣和精神需求的自然延伸。从中学时代就开始和老师、父母一起研究民权运动的布罗迪，成为法轮功信息中心创建人，如同水到渠成。与众不同的是那种对良心的诚实和对真理的信念。那么，面对一个西来幽灵党控制政府而发起的又一场全国性迫害运动，现实中除了精神层面的追求，远在美国的草根努力对中国的民众真的能起到正面作用吗？
Very much so. We've seen it makes a tremendous difference because first of all, the party does react to public exposure of what they're doing. We even see this in labor camps. I mean, an individual labor camp where someone had been torturing Falun Gong practitioners, and you expose that person. Let it be known what this person is doing to his community, to the people who are his friends and family, and watch what happens. A lot of times it will have an effect on that person, that they'll stop doing things so horrifically. But just to be clear, there's no hope for the Communist Party itself. The system itself is beyond repair. But what we can do is make it be not so vicious and ease up and let the world be more aware of what's going on and have them step up. That has a real effect. We've seen that happen. So I think that's one of the main things we'd be focused on.
99年7月开始受到中共全面迫害的10年来，法轮功给许多人的感觉是声势很大，搞很多公众活动。当明慧十方提出法轮功组织这个问题时，布罗迪说
is whether there's a membership roster, whether you sign up for anything like that. There isn't. There's just you, your desire to practice, and the teachings. And whether you do that by yourself in a log cabin up on the woods, or you do it like I do here in New York City, very much engaged with a group, is up to you. And that's also one of the things I love about the practice is it's very much about, you know, if you want to practice Falun Gong, you don't have to change your whole life. You don't have to move somewhere. You don't have to change your career. You don't have to get married or get divorced or anything like this. Whatever your life is, you fit Falun Gong into your life. You can take Falun Gong to anyone's life and they can actually practice it, whatever their schedule. The practice is very much about the individuals. Anyone who wants to practice, they get a book and they practice. And it's very much a grassroots thing. It's very much you learn from those who you love. I don't belong to a Falun Gong temple. I don't belong to a Falun Gong church. I do Falun Gong on my deck at home. That's where I practice. That's where I study. Now, I think what's happened now, because of all the stuff that's gone on in China, with the persecution going on there, you've seen a grassroots movement of a different sort, where people coming together, people who practice Falun Gong, people who care about Falun Gong, forming sort of human rights organizations, forming these bodies to get something done, to try and get the human rights atrocities that are happening in China out and heard in media, in governments, and things like that. And in that sense, you know, those groups, there are several organizations that have developed out of that. But that's not to do with the practice. Those organizations strictly exist to try and do something about what's happening in China.
从热衷于有氧运动到沉浸于缓慢圆的法轮功5套功法，从运动健将到公司主管、人权组织负责人，人到中年，作为丈夫和父亲的布罗迪，是否也开始遇到健康问题呢？心态又是如何保持的呢？
Like everyone, I'd have days when I'd have a bad headache, and I was like, ugh, or I'd have I'd just be weak and not have much energy, and just kind of laying out on the couch and kind of wait for it to pass, take a bunch of Tylenol, try and get it, this kind of thing. But after I started practicing, that stuff largely disappeared. Now I say largely because sometimes it still happens. Sometimes I have I'll get a headache or something like that. But I think now it's a very different experience for me on a couple of different ways. I mean, one, just on the basic level, is that in general I think society is a little bit too pain averse these days. I mean, sometimes people, I feel at least, people are a little bit too afraid of pain. There's nothing wrong with a little pain. They're too quick to grab a Tylenol or grab some chemicals and stick it in their body just to try and get rid of some pain. And I don't feel that's really necessary, because the body feels pain sometimes for a reason. It's telling you something, or maybe it's just a karma. There's karma that comes out in different ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a healthy process. And what I found is actually sometimes nowadays, if I do get a really bad headache, it'll pass. You can endure some pain. That's not going to kill you. It's not a big deal. And when it does pass, it feels a lot better. You feel a lot more cleansed. No, I mean, I think a lot of people have some of that interpretation, but to be honest with you, most of that stuff comes from the Communist Party. It's not like Falun Gong says that you can or cannot go to the hospital, you can or cannot get married, or can or cannot do this. There really are no rules. What it teaches are principles. What you decide to do with those principles is up to you. What it does, there's nothing about, you can't go to a hospital. What it does talk about is, what is karma? Where does it come from? What happens in the process of getting rid of karma? There's all this stuff about, you can't go to a hospital and stuff. I mean, this is one of about 20 or 30 things that when the Chinese Communist Party moved against Falun Gong and said, we're going to destroy this group, that's hard to do when you're talking about a group with, at that time, in China, was largely a household name and widely respected. I mean, these are people who are embracing principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. This is something they really take to heart. These are people really trying day in and day out in their life to be good people. It was a wonderfully sort of respected practice. How do you take something like that and destroy it if you're the ruling Communist Party? The first thing you have to do is make people believe Falun Gong is what it's not. Make them believe it's dangerous. Make them believe it has hatred, it has all these things. And that thing about not going to the hospital fits precisely in one. That's exactly one of the things they try and promote. Because if they can promote that, then maybe people will sort of forget about the wonderful things about Falun Gong and start listening to these propaganda points. And then it helps the Communist Party try and stamp out the practice. And it all comes back to that.